Welcome, Gunrunner.
Hello everybody, it's Kieran aka The Laird here, and today I'm going to be taking a look at Atari's very last home computer, the Falcon. Originally codenamed Sparrow, the Atari Falcon was released in late 1992 and was the true 32-bit upgrade to the ST that everyone had been waiting for. Although we had already got the Atari TT, that was more of a business orientated machine that was mostly used for music production and desktop publishing, thanks to its very high resolution monochrome screen. The computer was also released to compete with the Commodore Amiga 12000, which was released at almost the same time, keeping up the long-running ST Amiga rivalry. In fact, comparisons between the two computers were almost instant, but one look at the specs tells you that Atari definitely had the more powerful hardware. This superiority didn't translate into sales though, sadly, and the Falcon was discontinued just a year or so later, so Atari could put all their support into the new 64-bit Jaguar console. So what went wrong then? Well, it's impossible to give a straight answer, as a number of different factors led to the Falcon's demise. Firstly, there was the issue of the ST. By the time the Falcon had arrived, the ST market was in a steep decline, and the computer was no longer being supported by many of the major software houses. All focus had now switched over to the Amiga. Then there was a number of silly decisions from Atari themselves that cost the computer and the company dearly. As the Falcon neared completion, it was decided that the computer would be launched in Europe first, where the ST had been very successful, but it hadn't been decided who would take control of this, Atari UK or Atari Germany, the two leading markets in this region. Atari UK put a case across that the Falcon should be marketed the same way as the ST was, as a great all-round computer that was equally adept at playing games as it was at performing more serious applications. However, over in Germany, the ST had been mainly marketed as a business computer, with games very much taking a back seat, and their office wanted to market the Falcon in the same way. Eventually, Atari Germany won out. The computer was launched there first, with a far more muted UK launch happening just after, and a distinct lack of fanfare to go with it. Atari's decision pretty much alienated all the UK software publishers who were interested in making games for it, and the only titles to arrive were from Atari themselves. Granted, this lineup was actually quite strong, with arcade conversions such as Road Riot and Steel Talons, alongside popular puzzle game Dino Dudes and Jeff Minter's superb Llama Zap. A few more games and smaller third parties trickled out before the computer was discontinued, and the majority of Falcons ended up being used in the music industry, as the ST had before it. This continued use for music production meant that C-Lab ended up purchasing the full rights to the Falcon hardware design in 1995, and began producing their own versions in several different hardware configurations. Okay, so now we've covered the history of the Atari Falcon, we're going to actually have a look at one of these absolutely gorgeous computers. So the first thing you'll notice is that obviously the case looks exactly the same as the Atari ST. It was a cost-saving measure at that point to just reuse the case, but in a slightly different colour. We obviously went with this kind of attractive, kind of beigey grey with the dark grey keys. And then the multicoloured Atari logo, of course, but everything else on it is virtually identical to the ST. There are a few other differences which I will show in due course, but there was going to be a later model of the Falcon, as I've already mentioned, using a different case. So this was kind of just like the initial almost phase, the Falcon, but obviously sadly due to the lack of success of the system, we never saw the other model. So all we got was the Falcon 030 in the ST-like case. So one of the first things is, up there we still have our awful underneath joystick ports that the ST has that are incredibly hard to get to.
and that's mainly just for the backwards compatibility with the ST, so you can still use your old Atari joysticks. There we have our disk drive on the side, exactly the same as we had on the ST again, but obviously this time we've got a high density drive instead of the normal double-sided drive. On the back it doesn't look a lot different either, with our different ports, including we've now got a headphone and microphone, SCSI, DSP, monitor, television, printer, modem, LAN. So obviously there is a few extra ports there. Power, the same, the switch and the reset button. On the other side, we've got our legendary MIDI ports. One of the things that was made the ST the huge success that it was the MIDI ports that got it used so much in the industry, music industry. And obviously the Valken carried right on from where the ST left off, being the machine that was used by musicians. So the MIDI ports are retained along with the cartridge slot, which is also used for various dongles and cartridges that are plugged in that to help. Usually with the MIDI software, what a lot of them would do is they'd have a cartridge that you had to plug into the cartridge slot for authenticity, so therefore you couldn't pirate the software because the music production software was actually very, very expensive. And then here, which wasn't on the original ST but was on the STE models, are the Jaguar style joystick ports. So I don't know if you can see, but there's a little joystick icon in the middle, so you can plug Jaguar pads into those ports for using with the Valken specific games. And there was a version of the Jaguar pad for the Valken, but it was in the same colours as the Valken, so it was grey with a blue logo on it. I'll show that in the top right corner so you can see what that looks like. So that was quite different. In terms of the keyboard, it does feel very, very much like the ST keyboard. It is a slightly squashy. It's not the greatest keyboard you're going to feel, but it's still very, 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 very good. I've always liked the feel actually of the ST keyboard. Some people don't like it, I do. I absolutely adore the F keys and the way they're designed like that. I've always loved the design of the ST, and the Valken design is similar. One thing I will say is though, this is incredibly heavy. The original STs were heavy, but the Valken is even heavier. It really is a big chonky beast, and yeah, if you drop that on your foot, you'd know about it. And that's really all there is to show you around the Valken itself. I mean, the keyboard is identical to the ST, obviously the case is identical to the ST, and it really does show, you know, that it was a direct follow-on from the Atari ST.
And all of that brings us to the present day, where the Valken is still being kept alive by a small community of dedicated fans, who still produce new games, demos and hardware add-ons for the computer. Due to its expansion capabilities, this has also led to several accelerators being produced for the Valken, such as one that allows you to upgrade the CPU to a Motorola 68060, making it far more powerful. The question of whether it's actually worth owning one today is another matter altogether though, as the high-priced Valken's fetch on auction sites is likely to put most collectors off straight away. You also have to ask yourself what you want it for, as the relatively small selection of games available for the Valken is unlikely to appeal to anyone but the most dedicated Atari fan. It's a shame because the Valken could have and should have been a true successor to the ST, and kept Atari alive as a computer company for at least a little bit longer. Are you lucky enough to own a Valken? Is it a machine you lust after, or just an interesting piece of history that's not worth owning? Please let me know your thoughts in the comments. But before I go, I must also thank all my loyal patrons for continuing to support my channel and make videos like this possible. So special thanks to Thunder Fundington, John DiLiberto, Keith, Carl Olsen, Larry Anderson, Mark Slorence, Mr. Gaboto, Psycho Larvos, Coldar Fusion and Scott Maguire. If you want to do the same thing, then go check out my Patreon right now and get access to a host of extra content including downloads, exclusive videos, creative insights and much more besides. I've been the Laird and I thank you for watching, and I'll see you all again for another video very soon.